Donald Trump has returned to the Middle East in dramatic fashion. A 4-day tour through Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates that has put him back on the global stage, and every stop has been drenched in spectacle. In Riyadh, he was greeted with pageantry, ornate sword dances, and long red carpets, all designed to signal that the old days of transactional deal-making are back. Trump openly declared that he hopes to bring home hundreds of billions of dollars in Gulf investment, an ambition that shows how heavily his agenda leans toward economic rewards. Yet one detail of his itinerary stood out even more than the glittering receptions. He did not set foot in Israel. That single absence has become the loudest statement of the trip, a silent signal that the famous Trump-Netanyahu bond is under real strain. Hovering above all other headlines is the story of a flying palace, a Boeing 747-8 jumbo jet, refitted with marble floors, private suites, gold-framed mirrors, and hand-stitched leather walls. Qatari royals have offered this lavish palace in the sky to the United States as a gift for Trump's use until the end of his term. The proposal reads like something from a modern fairy tale. Hand the president a fully equipped luxury aircraft at no cost, then transfer it to the Trump Presidential Library Foundation once he leaves office. Trump toured the plane months ago, marveling at its chandeliers and whisper-quiet conference rooms. And he loved it so much that he grumbled about waiting for the delayed next-generation Air Force One jets already on order from Boeing. Now that a gleaming alternative has appeared, completely free, he calls it a great gesture, saying only a fool would refuse such generosity. The gift, though, has landed in Washington with a sonic boom. Federal law strictly regulates presents from foreign powers, and no president has ever been handed anything remotely this valuable. White House lawyers produced a special briefing to explain how the transfer would comply with statutes that bar personal enrichment. Trump has insisted, again and again, that the aircraft will belong to the government and later to a public foundation, not to him. Even so, the prospect of a $400 million jet arriving courtesy of a foreign monarchy has triggered bipartisan unease. Some Democratic lawmakers label it a conflict of interest, while a handful of Republicans mutter that Air Force One ought to be an American-built symbol, not a gift from abroad. Ethics experts warn about security, maintenance, and image problems, raising fears that a presidential plane donated by royals could become an airborne magnet for legal challenges and conspiracy theories. Inside Trump's orbit, the calculation is straightforward. Accepting the jet would save taxpayers money, give the president a state-of-the-art ride immediately, and showcase a deepening alliance with an oil-rich partner. Qatar, for its part, hosts a large American airbase and is eager to tighten ties with Washington after rocky years. Trump's advisors point out that previous administrations have accepted art, jewelry, and even thoroughbred horses from foreign leaders, arguing that this is the same principle, just on a grander scale. They note that once the jet is in service, technicians will retrofit it with American defense technology, encrypted communications, and anti-missile systems, meaning the gift will end up bolstering national security. Yet the soaring headlines about the luxury plane cannot hide another drama playing out on the ground: the cooling friendship between Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Not long ago, the two leaders seemed inseparable. During Trump's first term, he moved the American embassy to Jerusalem, recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights, and spoke of Netanyahu as a close personal friend. Netanyahu in turn praised Trump as the most pro-Israel president in living memory. Their joint press conferences felt like political rallies, complete with broad smiles and mutual compliments. That warmth began to fade when Netanyahu congratulated Joe Biden on winning the 2020 election, while Trump still contested the result. Trump never forgot the slight. By the time he launched his comeback campaign, his tone toward Netanyahu had shifted from glowing to guarded. Israeli officials who once enjoyed open doors at the White House found themselves chasing phone calls that never came. Behind closed doors, Trump advisors complained that Netanyahu failed to handle the Gaza conflict in a way that aligned with Washington's new priorities. The sense of easy harmony was gone. This trip made the distance unmistakable. Israeli diplomats begged to add even a half-day visit to Jerusalem, and were firmly told no. Trump instead packed his calendar with oil-rich monarchies eager to commit eye-popping sums to American energy projects, technology partnerships, and real estate developments. Saudi Arabia alone pledged $600 billion in new investments over 4 years, while the Emirates floated a promise of $1,400 billion over the next decade. Those breathtaking figures explain why golden halls in Riyadh and Doha seemed more enticing than diplomatic photo ops in Jerusalem. Israel watched with unease as Trump made decisions that bypassed or even blindsided its government. First, he directed back-channel talks with Hamas that freed dual citizen Eden Alexander without Israeli participation. Then he brokered a temporary ceasefire with Yemen's Houthi rebels, again without looping in Israeli security chiefs, who view the Houthis as an Iranian proxy. Finally, he reopened quiet nuclear discussions with Tehran, a move that rattled Netanyahu's hawkish cabinet. Each step signaled that American strategy was being written in real time, driven by Trump's instinct for headline deals rather than by old alliances. Netanyahu has responded with a mix of flattery and private frustration. He rushed to Washington twice in the spring, offering public declarations that he and Trump share identical war aims. Above all, the defeat of Hamas. He posed for cameras in the Oval Office, hailed the enduring bond between the two nations, and insisted everything was on track. But leaks from inside his government told another story. Advisors whispered that Trump's envoy, real estate magnate Steve Witkoff, rebuked Netanyahu for refusing a prisoner swap proposal. Others fumed that American officials are crafting ceasefire frameworks without Israeli fingerprints. The old synchrony, they say, has turned into a guessing game. Every morning they wait to see which new surprise might emerge from Washington. Meanwhile, in Gulf capitals, Trump was busy choreographing triumphal scenes. In Riyadh, he signed memoranda of understanding for new chip factories in Phoenix and Houston, financed by Saudi funds. In Abu Dhabi, he toasted a green hydrogen partnership meant to power American truck fleets. In Doha, he teased groundbreaking for an artificial intelligence research center in Austin, bankrolled by Qatari wealth. At each event, he invoked historic investments that would create jobs for American workers, delivering applause lines tailor-made for domestic audiences. The subtext was clear. Nations offering vast cash reserves receive FaceTime and presidential gratitude. Those offering strategic coordination but little new capital must wait their turn. The luxury jet embodies that new order. Wrapped in cream leather and brushed gold, it sits at an airfield in Texas, waiting for clearance to become an interim Air Force One. Engineers are already drafting plans to swap the tail insignia for the familiar blue and white livery. Customs forms describe the plane as a diplomatic gift, price listed as $0, though everyone knows the real value approaches $500 million. If all goes smoothly, the president could be flying aboard it within months, regaling passengers with stories of how smart it was to accept a free palace rather than wait for delayed American builds. Back in Israel, the symbolism is hard to miss. While Gulf monarchs shower Trump with treasure, Netanyahu grapples with war costs, civilian unrest, and a budget stretched thin. Some Israeli commentators wonder aloud whether the country has lost its privileged seat by Trump's side. Others argue that the current chill is temporary, that Trump, ever transactional, will return to Israel when the timing suits him. After all, no American election can be won without strong support among pro-Israel voters, they say. And Trump knows it. For now, though, Jerusalem is not on his flight plan, and that single fact speaks louder than a dozen official statements. As the trip winds down, the contrasts remain stark. Trump departs the Gulf with signed investment pledges, fresh alliances, and perhaps the most extravagant presidential aircraft in history. He leaves behind glowing front-page photos of sword dances, towering skyscrapers, and promises of shared prosperity. He also leaves behind a trail of unanswered questions. How will Congress react to a donated jet? Will watchdog groups sue? What happens if Gulf commitments falter? And most of all, where does Israel now fit into Trump's reordered map of the Middle East? Trump calls himself the world's greatest dealmaker, and says his approach brings peace closer by aligning interests instead of lecturing allies. His supporters hail the cash inflows and the message that America is open for business. His detractors see ethical fog and fear that Washington's moral compass is spinning. What no one can deny is that the landscape has shifted. A palace in the sky glints on a Texas tarmac, waiting for its first presidential flight. Gulf royals celebrate newfound influence in the White House. And Benjamin Netanyahu, once the favored partner, watches from a cautious distance, hoping the next time Trump touches down in the region, the runway will be in Tel Aviv rather than Doha.